Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at Special Booster 2.5, and Special Booster 2.5 offers us lots of new and powerful tools in order to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be one of the brand new decks in Special Booster 2.5, featured in the BT20 portion of it, and that's going to be the ACCEL DNA deck. So ACCEL is, well, a DNA-based deck, where the goal of the deck is to try to DNA Digivolve into our level 7, and our level 7 is going to be the primary win condition on trying to disrupt the opponent and deal some decent damage at the same time. The main gameplay loop in terms of how we're actually getting to our level 7 seems like we just want to build up into a level 5, hard play our ACCEL level 6, and then our egg, the main ACCEL egg, is going to allow us to digivolve our level 5 into another level 6, and then boom, we have 2 level 6s on our field, so that way we can DNA into our level 7. And the cool thing is the level 7s that we're going to be playing with do have the partition ability, so that's going to be a really strong form of protection to make your board sticky and resilient against a decent amount of the potential removal types the opponent could be throwing at us. Then we also do have some strong floodgate style of effects to try to prevent the opponent from actually being able to fight back in a meaningful way. And just through experimenting, I did find that ACCEL can be ran in 3 main different ways. The first one, which is going to be the one that I'm covering in this video, which is going to be the pure ACCEL build. So this is just us maximizing on all of the ACCEL tools and using them, well, in the way that they were designed to be. But I do think that there is room for a yellow vaccine engine to be used on top of the DNA engine utilizing Armadillomon or even Patamon. So there is a decent amount of potential with this deck in the different ways that we could play it. But the biggest weakness of the deck, more specifically to the pure ACCEL variant, is the fact that we have 0 protections against the opponent's soft removal, like de-digivolve or source stripping. So it is more matchup dependent in terms of how well this deck is able to perform. And then, just like almost every deck in Digimon at this point, the deck is going to have an issue against specific floodgates and ace Digimon that could disrupt us from our overall game plan. Then the last big thing I want to point out is the Varuduru line is really weak, like aggressively mediocre levels of weak, especially compared to the Bancho Leomon line, which is actually pretty strong. So about half of the deck isn't necessarily on par with the power level of where the game currently is. So you're using a lot of not so great cards just to be able to play the actual good cards. So with all that in mind, I do think that this is going to be a more casual deck at the end of the day, and I personally wouldn't recommend it in terms of like taking it to a big high level competitive event. This is more of a for fun and casual deck that does have some potential to do some really strong things and have some really interesting builds built around what its core gameplay is. So with all that said and done, let's just dive right into the deck profile and see what we're working with. Starting off with the Digitamers, I'm only going to be running 4 copies of Patamon from BT20 because it is the only level 2 ACCEL Digimon we actually have. So this is not only just the only egg, but the best egg because of its synergy and interaction with ACCEL to be able to line up a part of our key gameplay loop, which is being able to play out a Digimon, and then using Patamon, we get to reduce the cost of digivolving into an ACCEL traded Digimon for having played out an ACCEL traded Digimon. So as I kind of already highlighted, this is what's allowing us to basically have the deck function as intended. Then when it comes to the level 3s, and I guess this is going to extend to the majority of the deck, we're most likely, shocker, going to be playing all of the ACCEL cards because we don't have a whole lot, so we're kind of just forced to run all that we can. So when it comes to the level 3s more specifically, this means I'm going to be running Leomon as the deck's primary ACCEL and chaosmon searcher, while also having the Inheritable of Barrier for some additional protection, while I'm also going to be running 4 copies of Falcomon to be able to help us with our overall tempo, being able to reduce the cost of digivolving into an Accel traded Digimon by 1, with the inheritable ability of Piercing for some more, I guess, offensive and control-styled gameplay. With the Spicy Tech card being a not really so spicy tech card at all, which is going to be 3 copies of Ukamon. Ukamon is just one of the best filler rookies if you don't have an additional rookie to play around with, which this deck really kind of doesn't. So Ukamon is just fantastic at filling in that role, while also being one of the best searching engines in the entire game. Then when it comes to the level 4s, again, just running the Accel cards we have, so that means I'm going to be running 4 copies of Digimon, so it has a low play cost compared to a lot of other level 4s, but it also has an on-play and when digivolving ability to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon, while it has the same inheritable ability as Falcomon with Piercing. Then I'm also going to be running 4 copies of Leomon. It is unfortunate that this card doesn't have the rules text to count as Leomon in name, but regardless, we're not using it for Leomon, we're using it for Accel because it is another Accel card with a relatively low play cost similar to Digimon, and it has another on-play and when digivolving pairing, so it gives us multiple different ways to be able to use both of these cards, where this time we get to have one of the opponent's Digimon get minus 3000 DP for the turn. Then it also has the same inheritable ability as Leomon, having consistency on barrier as well. Then for the Spicy Tech level 4, that's going to go to 1 copy of Sukamon because Sukamon is already playing in the colors that we want. This deck, even though we do have a green egg, is actually a yellow deck. So this is a really fantastic card, not only for being a level 4 with a really low play cost and having really low DP, which will matter for one of our cards, but it also has a security ability to be able to be played out for free when it's checked in our security, which could give us an extra body to do various different things with, which is always nice to have, while also having a pretty decent inheritable ability of on delete. One of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 3000 DP for the turn. And then when it comes to the level 5s, I'm again just going to be running more Accel Digimon. You could just strictly run Accel Digimon, but I do like having some flexibility in other potential level 5s that we could be playing. But when it comes to our Accels, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Loader Leomon because this is the better of the 2 Accel level 5s that we have. So it has an on-play and when digivolving ability where until the end of the opponent's turn, one of their Digimon can't activate their when digivolving abilities, and they also get minus 3000 DP. Then its inheritable ability is not too bad either, where during the opponent's turn, when one of your opponent's Digimon attacks, you basically get to redirect it into this Digimon, acting as pseudo-blocker, but better because it's not actually blocker. Then when it comes to the other Accel, it's going to be 2 copies of Chromon. Chromon is fine. It's not great, but it's fine. So its on-play and when digivolving ability allows us to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon, and one of our Digimon gets plus 3000 DP for the turn, then one of our Digimon can attack. Then the inheritable ability is, again, just fine. It's not doing anything super insane. It's just a nice when attacking ability of one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 4000 DP for the turn. So we have multiple ways to be able to DP reduce the opponent's Digimon and have it potentially stack. Then when it comes to the off level 5, like I said, if you really wanted to, you could just play 2 extra copies of Chromon just to make your life easy, but Shakuamon is actually a highly underrated card in my perspective. So not only is it another DNA Digimon that's fitting on brand with the colors that we're already playing around with, he himself natively and inheritably does have the partition ability to be able to spit out a black and yellow level 4, so that's still pretty good, especially if we're already all the way up in our high stage. Then we could basically double partition, and that could be pretty spicy and fun, on top of the fact that he has a nice when digivolving ability that's applying some protection in case we're unable to DNA into our level 7 that turn. No matter what, whether we DNA or not, we're still getting the fact that until the end of our opponent's turn, this Digimon isn't affected by their Digimon effects, which is really good levels of protection, locking out a lot of potential options that the opponent has to be able to get rid of our Digimon. Then, when we actually do DNA Digivolve, the added benefit is just some alternative form of removal by taking one of their Digimon, throwing it into the opponent's security stack, as long as their level is equal to or less than the number of cards in either our security or the opponent's security. So it could get around a decent amount of protections that the opponent could be playing around with. And then when it comes to the level 6s, I'm again just opting to keep my life easy and just running all ACCEL level 6s. I was considering taking out one Varadurumon because it is not that strong of a card, and just playing something like a Medieval Gallant because that card is borderline insane, and the fact that it's still green means we could still potentially DNA with it into our main level 7. But regardless, that was just a thought, and I'm just going to be running 3 Varadurumon just for the consistency on making sure that we could actually see the ACCEL cards we need in order to DNA easier. So what this card is doing, similarly to Bancho Leomon, is the fact that both of them can be played for a reduced play cost of 5 as long as we have another Digimon with ACCEL in its traits on our field. So that's already pretty nice, being able to hard play high level Digimon for a little bit cheaper. Then they both have the end of turn DNA ability to DNA Digivolve into a chaosmon named Digimon and be able to attack post DNA. So both of them are doing that, and that's really good at making sure that the chaosmon is going to be as playable as possible. What Varadurumon is doing more specifically is the fact that its on play and when Digivolving ability suspends all of the opponent's Digimon down, and then one of our Digimon gets plus 3000 DP, and we can attack with one of our Digimon. So it's basically doing the exact same thing as the Chromon, just a little bit better. And the inheritable ability is basically the exact same thing as Chromon, so again, we could stack up all of the DP reductions to do whatever we want with it. Then the Bancho Leomon is going to be the stronger of the two, just because his on-play and when Digivolving ability is D-Digivolve 2, which is already pretty decent in of itself, but then one of their Digimon gets minus 5000 DP until the end of their turn, so this is that premium DP reduction that's going to be sticking, making their Digimon as weak as possible. Then the inheritable ability on Bancho is the same as Loader Leomon's, so possible more redirections means that we have more possible defensive lines of play. And then when it comes to the level 7s, I'm just going to keep my life simple and running all chaosmons. So you could kind of mix and match on the ratios as far as what you want when it comes to your chaosmons. We just mostly care about the chaosmon name. Each one of them does have their own sets of pros and cons. It just really depends on your build and your own personal preferences. But the 2 copies of BT19 Chaosmon I still think is pretty nice, just because, again, he's an easy card for us to DNA into. He comes with Barrier and Blocker, so we have more protection on top of the added Blocker keyword. So if we use all of our defensive abilities, we could really wall out the opponent's Digimon potentially, on top of the fact that he does also come with Partition, which is really nice at being able to keep our Digimon around. Then he even has a nice when Digivolving ability to D-Digivolve 3 on one of the opponent's Digimon, and then give one of their Digimon minus 8000 DP for the turn. Then it also has another ability where at the end of the opponent's turn, we get to trash the top card of both players' security stacks. We don't necessarily care about our security as much, especially if we have all of the added defense into what we're already playing around with, but the fact that we're trashing the opponents means that it's just going to be a little bit easier to win the game with, especially since it's not checking the security, so any security effects outside of a select few won't trigger. Then I'm going to be using 2 copies of Chaosmon Volderarm as the other Chaosmon. It's pretty good because, again, similarly to Chaosmon from BT16, it still is a DNA Digivolve off of yellow and either green or black, so it's a little bit easier for us to use, but it also has the partition ability that is the same cost as its DNA Digivolution, so if it were to be removed, it spits out its parts and pieces. Then it has security attack +1, so even though it's not burning the opponent's security, it's not hurting our security, and it can still apply a lot of pressure onto the opponent. Then it even has a nice when Digivolving ability that's acting as a giant floodgate for the opponent, because for each of this Digimon's level 6 Digimon in its inheritables, we get to suspend a Digimon or Tamer, and then gain a memory for each, so that way we could just gain some additional memory back for DNAing into this Digimon, which just makes our cards a little bit more efficient. But the best part is that floodgatey part, where then none of the opponent's Digimon or Tamers can activate on-play effects or unsuspend until the end of their turn. Again, really limiting and locking them down out of specific actions, especially if we combine this with Loader Leomon to stop them from gaining their when Digivolving effects. It just puts a lot of pressure onto the opponent that they might not be able to deal with. And then when it comes to the Tamers, because we are a primarily yellow deck, I'm going to be running 2 copies of TK because it's just another really good consistency tool at not only being our memory fixing Tamer, but also being able to look at our security stack and add any card among them into our hand. So it doesn't exactly have to be yellow, but we prefer it to be yellow because if we did grab a yellow card, then we get to recover 1, essentially losing nothing out of our security, using our security as basically an extra resource to be able to pull cards from. Then when it comes to the option lineup, I'm going to be keeping it rather simple on just running the majority of the staples that most Digimon decks, especially stack-based decks, are going to be running anyway, which is going to be a combination of trainings, scrambles, and memory boosts. So the memory boosts and training cards are very similar, being consistency tools when we use their main ability, and their delay ability helps us with our overall tempo. And then Yellow Scramble is actually a pretty fantastic card for DNA-based decks, because when we DNA, we reset the state of the Digimon, so we could actually potentially attack with the Digimon that we spawned off of our scrambles. So Yellow Scramble, its main ability is just a tempo tool, so it's just helping with our ease of Digivolution, but the delay ability is what's really making this card super powerful, because we get to return a yellow card from our trash to the top of our deck. Then if we don't have a Digimon in play, we get to play a yellow Digimon with 2000 DP or less from our trash for free. So we could bring out most likely going to be a rookie, but in the off chance we do have Sukamon in there, then this card actually can grab Sukamon starting off with a level 4. So it makes climbing up our stages that much easier and more efficient. And its security ability also lets us play out a Digimon with 2000 DP or less, so it's still just a very good and strong card to have nonetheless. And then the last option is going to be the ACCEL option, which is going to synergize with our chaosmons. So we could use this card ignoring the color requirement as long as we have a chaosmon or ACCEL traded card on the field, which is the majority of the deck. And then its security ability allows us to gain a memory and add this card to our hand, so it's a good anti-tempo tool. And it also has a nice main ability where we get to play an ACCEL traded card from our hand and reduce the cost by 4, which is a good amount. And then we get to put this card to the bottom of any of our Digimon's Digivolution source. So the main combo we want to use is using this obviously with our level 6s, because our level 6s are already going to reduce them by 5, and then this is going to reduce them effectively by 2, so it makes playing out a level 6 only cost 5, which is pretty cheap, and if we use Volder Arm, then we're even going to be gaining memory back potentially, so it just makes going into our higher stages super easy and efficient. Then the inheritable ability we're actually going to be gaining off of this card states that at the end of the opponent's turn, if this Digimon has Chaosmon in its name, we get to trash the top card of the opponent's security stack, and then this Digimon gets minus 30,000 DP for the turn, which might seem like a bad thing, but the way the effects are going to be triggering, it's going to trigger our partition at the end of the opponent's turn, so that way we are going to spit out the 2 bodies, and we could use the 2 bodies for whatever, and then DNA into another level 7, and be able to apply the pressure all over again. So it's just a really high synergistic card that makes the deck a little bit easier to play around with. And for the most part, that's going to be it for the deck. This is just my interpretation of a more pure ACCEL build, and I don't necessarily think there's going to be that much deviation for what ACCEL is going to be, because ACCEL, we only have so much tools, and currently we kind of just have to run them all. So it's just going to be the other off engines and spicy tech cards that's really going to separate what ACCEL is capable of. But when it comes to those other useful cards, we do have a lot of other cards that can help support DNA. We have cards that synergize with chaosmon, and we also have good generic tech cards in the various different colors the deck is already going to be playing around with. But it's not like they're going to be leaving us high and dry. We do have some potential future support in terms of direct support with a new LM card that's going to be a box topper in BT21, being Digimon Ace. So that's going to be really cool to be able to play around with this deck to further enhance what it's capable of. But that's all I really have for this deck profile. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts about the deck down in the comments below. And while you're down there, you might as well hit that like and subscribe if you enjoyed this type of content and want to see more. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that way you could stay up to date when I upload or go live next. And with that, thank you everyone for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.